Donald Trump says Republicans have a nuclear weapon and they should use it. And that is not all he has to say about the fiscal cliff crisis. Now, we spoke with Donald Trump earlier tonight. Donald, I understand that you say the Republicans are in a stronger position than they realize going into this fiscal cliff debate or debacle, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think they're in the strongest position if they only knew the debt ceiling is coming up in a very short period of time. Frankly, if you remember on your show, I said they should not agree to extend the debt ceiling beyond the election. And when they did that, and as soon as they did that, they lost the election. They would have won the election had it come due before, and they would have won that if they stuck to it. But they didn't do it. But nevertheless, the debt ceiling has to be agreed to. They have the cards. I just don't think they know it, unfortunately. They should get everything they want based on just the debt ceiling alone.
Explain that to me. Suppose that the Republicans dug their heels in the ground and said they refused to raise the debt ceiling. How would that empower them?
Well, that government, unfortunately, as it almost has anyway, would come to a total standstill. With the debt ceiling coming due in another month from now, they should make that a part of the debate. The president is going to have to do something about the debt ceiling, has always been concerned about it and what's going to happen, because obviously they need a lift in the debt ceiling. And I've always said, and I said it to you, this should have not been allowed to have happened after the election, because if it happened before the election, the Republicans could have won, and they would have won, I think. But the fact that they have the debt ceiling coming up, they should put the debt ceiling in with everything else they're negotiating and make an overall deal. And don't worry about the fiscal cliff, because I believe it's totally overrated.
You referred to it as the fiscal curb. Why do you think the fiscal cliff is overrated?
Because ultimately a deal is going to happen. And if the Republicans are smart, which so far, unfortunately, it hasn't been working out that way, but if the Republicans are smart, they're going to use that, and they're going to get every single thing that they wanted, including huge reduction in expenditures.
Well, the way it seems to be rolling out now is that all our taxes, every single income level, are going to go up January 1st if no deal is struck. The Democrats, I assume, intend to paint that as the Republicans have raised all your taxes and blame Republicans. So I don't think the Democrats see this as a win for the Republicans.
No, I think that's right, and I think that's fine, and let it happen, because ultimately all of these folks that signed the pledge, and some people that sign a pledge, whether you like the pledge or not, they sort of feel committed to it. Now the taxes go up for a short period of time, and then they give a tax reduction, even if that happens to be somewhat more than what they were paying as of last week. So it's going to be a very interesting situation. But a lot of the Republican problem is solved because they're going to be doing a tax reduction as opposed to an increase. So, the Republicans, Greta, the Republicans have the cards. I just don't know if they know that.
Well, you know what I find rather interesting, for lack of a better word, about this discussion is that if we go with the fiscal cliff, there'll be $1.2 trillion in tax cuts over 10 years, which is about $110 billion in the first year, and for every successive year after that, $110 billion. So we go into the $110 billion for year one, and then what happens is next year Congress just decides to do what it wants anyway and scraps whatever plan it had in effect for the 9 years anyway. So we pretend like we have these big 10-year plans, but they never turn out to be 10-year plans at all.
Well, that's true. But, there is something that is looming in a month and a half, and they're going to have to do something with the debt ceiling. Now, whether or not debt ceiling should happen, whether or not we should even have such a thing as the debt ceiling, but we do. And the Democrats and the president have to do something about it. They know how strong it is, and the Republicans have a very, very powerful card to get what they want, which is basically a reduction in massive expenditures. We're up to $17 trillion in debt. And something has to be done, and it has to be done quickly. And if it's not done properly, and that's why I hate Plan B and Plan C and all of these minor plans, these little step plans, they should negotiate a real plan. They shouldn't have the minor plan. They should have the big plan, and it should be done now. And you can include the debt ceiling with that, because if you do, you're going to get everything you want.
But you talk about a major plan. Donald, they've known about, just for instance, this fiscal cliff, they've known about for 18 months. They've done nothing for 18 months. There was,
they've really known about it for 10 years.
Well, for 10 years. But nobody
they've known about it for 10 years.
Well, no politician was tied up in the basement. Well, my point is, though, no politician has been tied up in the basement of the Capitol or the White House and said, don't do this. I mean, they've had plenty of opportunity. You talk about the big plan. Have you seen any appetite for any of these members of Congress or the president or anybody else to really have a big plan that actually fixes the problem?
No, because right now the president doesn't have a big downside, but in a month and a half from now he has a huge downside, and that comes due with the debt ceiling. And frankly, you know, when you say they've known about this for a year and a half, they've known about this for 10 years because it was always meant to be. I mean, this was going to explode, and people were going to negotiate something before it explodes. But I think it's highly overrated. It's going to happen. And lots of good things can happen if it does explode. And I think people should stop worrying about that. I think they should start worrying about making a great deal. Not a small deal, but a big deal, an overall deal that's going to get the credit rating of this country back and do lots of other good things.
Donald, always nice to talk to you.
Thanks a lot, Greta.